maybe still some sort of 127. But it should be a very close race today. Look to just see some incredible strats from incredible gamers who are just good at every video game they touch. I'm really excited, and looks like we're just about ready to get started here. So on speedrun.com, we can see VOoid there with a 126.35 and Louis with a 127.44. And both of those PBs are within the past couple of months. Both players really just finding this game recently and becoming so skilled at it recently. So we're going to see some very high-level play. We're seeing two players who are kind of still improving and at the height of their powers currently. No rust, just excellent play coming forward. We've just received the sword from Cranky Kong, and we're playing as Linky Kong. And we're about to go find the girl monkey, whatever her name is. Is that right? So we did see a small early mistake there by Louis, not getting that double spin on that statue and that guard, having to use a slash. Not an enormous mistake, but certainly a little bit early to be having the nerves. And VOoid missing that spin on that green guard. So a couple early mistakes from both of these players. I think they both recognize the gravity of the occasion and the general skill of their opponent. Nerves early on here, not characteristic mistakes by any means, and we're in the territory where you're saying, wow, that never happens. The GDQ catchphrase. So there we saw some different strats on that ball and chain guard. We saw Louis throwing a pot and then 4 slashes, and we saw VOoid using 8 slashes. Just slightly faster, the 8 slashes, but also a bit harder. And we saw both players clocking in despite the mistakes at under a 3-minute big key. That means that we're seeing respectable times. Not times that either runner is happy with, but they're saying, okay, now I gotta focus, I've made it through, and I gotta think about the rest of this beginning sequence with the sewers and then Eastern Palace. Of course, the sequence up to the end of Eastern Palace is distinguished by us not having the boots yet, which means that we are doing different kinds of movements. We're doing our pumping movements, and I'm just thinking a little bit differently about getting through rooms. A room like this with boots, we would not be so worried about the green guards, but you see both of them having to somewhat maneuver their ways through. And you see, despite a few things having happened, they're almost synced back up here again, both with 1 rupee. Louis down half a heart, and entering those stairs maybe half a second at most before Void. Louis maybe did not have to, but chose to boomerang 1 snake, and then they were synced again before this room where Louis got, frankly, bodied, I believe is how you use that verb. And then it was Void's turn to get knocked around a little bit as he was, after he killed that rat, I believe he got knocked kind of upwards and downwards. And we ended up seeing around a 555 escape for Void and a 557 escape for Louis. Both of them around now, I expect, will not be quite thrilled. They're going to grab the Sank Heart, I believe, and just kind of try and focus and center themselves for what's to come. Now in this overworld sequence, we're basically just trying to avoid, the worst thing is to get hit, but we're also trying to avoid any unnecessary boomerangs or slashes. If an Octorok looks like it might be getting in our way, we'll kill it. You saw both of them boomeranging that 1 Octorok. You almost always must do that. See Void and Louis both slashing that Octorok, not picking up those 5 rupees. We'll see how they do with rupee counts as Eastern and Desert and Hera go on. Of course, we want to exit the light world with 110 rupees or more to pay to get into the Palace of Darkness. Louis doing that strat? I don't... You know, I'm not gonna legitimize that by talking about it. We're going in onto the skeleton room on Void's side. You see both trying to get around these skeletons without too many slashes. Void and Louis both getting both skeletons very easily, not picking up that magic pot that was behind them. That's fine. And we're seeing both runners picking up these extra 5 arrows. Just a nice little safety. Rather quick arrow pot very early on. Can be negated by drops later on in Eastern, but also can save you if you don't get drops. Can save about 2 seconds in just the room right before the Armos Knight boss. Some bad movement RNG on the skeletons from Louis, and maybe a somewhat unnecessary boomerang from Voids on that Popo. Louis was necessary. Lots of trouble for Void. Not know what to do. He got hit by... Wow. Void having a lot of stress here. Well, he's going to kill all the enemies here. He got hit by the thing, and then the other thing, and then was out of hearts and didn't have another thing to get hit with. So I can't say that he reacted necessarily great under that pressure, but he is thinking, wow, I really don't want to die here. He really doesn't want to die. And he is just several rooms behind now. I don't... This is a huge early turn of events, and we will see VOoid trying to make up this gap for quite a lot of the remainder of the run. And that arrow drop that he got does not even matter. Does not even matter because he got that 5 pot. So nothing happy about this situation for VOoid. Good Zelda gamer room from Louis. VOoid did not even pick up that red rupee, which I kind of wish he had. It was right there. We're going to see a standard top right Armos strat. This strat, most players seem to think has the best balance of speed and consistency. Faster than the bottom right Armos, but much easier than the kind of middle-y strats. Louis picking up all those hearts. And despite all those arrow drops, he's now going to be lower on arrows exiting this fight than Louis. A very precise placement of Link for VOoid there. So certainly a good fight, but an 11:21 Armos is just not at all what he is used to seeing. This is about a 35-second difference already. If we're speculating on what VOoid might have done there, I think the right thing to do, after he noticed he wasn't going to get the normal damage boost, should have been just to fill up on hearts completely till he had 4, and then do the damage boost from the top, the kind of easier damage boost. It seemed like he lost a lot of health there, not being sure what to do. And this is something that I always like to talk about in this commentary, that in a race setting, your practice matters a lot, but also your presence of mind, knowing what to do, knowing your backup, knowing what happens when what isn't supposed to happen does happen, knowing what happens next after that. And we are now into the what happens after what wasn't supposed to happen phase, and show us some resourcefulness going forward in this race, as he has opened up quite a gap from Louis, who is ahead. Now, I said the gap was about 35 seconds. These players on speed gaming, obviously they're very similar strengths, but they do have a 70-second gap, or approximately, actually a 69-second gap between the two of them, which I think is nice. So the gap that Louis has opened up here is only about half of the gap between the two PBs. So theoretically, VOoid should be able to make this back up, but it will take him, if both are playing at their peaks, it will take him until well into the Dark World until we see that gap closing. Of course, there are many variables before that. There's Landmolus, there's Moldorm, all sorts of movement. There's bonking there and then getting hit by that thing that just happened to Louis. And of course there's blue balls. So we're just gonna have to see what happens. We're gonna see what VOoid does to ameliorate this. On Louis' side, I have to think that actually psychologically, this is probably going to, I mean, I'm sure Louis will continue just playing his game, but you don't actually always want to see this from your opponent so early either, because it kind of changes your sense of what you're supposed to be doing, and then you start having to make all these choices, right? You're saying, I'm not in quite a traditional situation. My hope is that both players will relax a little bit and we'll get into just a normal rhythm so that we can see some of that really high level play that we're hoping for on, you know, Landmo is a great place to start. So hoping for some great Landmo fights. We do see VOoid making up, I don't know, maybe a second and a half, maybe 90 frames from not having to cancel his dash on those cannonballs there. And we're getting some great book spam from Louis. Just really like to see that. Really like to teach the kids how to read. You saw Louis there pausing a little bit. He didn't go quite down as far as a runner normally does when doing that spin speed. I haven't even explained spin speed, but I think by this point, viewers probably understand. And he just went right down, only slightly below the stairs, and just nudged to the right, and then went around up and right. Now, some great patterns on these popos, but he does get hit by them. They were so close to him. You want them to come close to you so that you can kill them easily, but they were so close to him. They were really too close for comfort. And a slightly worse pattern there for VOoid. He does need to kill the last two very separately and do that dash up there. Big variable right here. We're going to just see this great fight from Louis. We're at 4.5 out of 12 so far. Wow, and has maybe 2 arrow shots left total on these last two. Oh, unfortunately did not quite get the 3 cycle there. Has just 1 shot left after that short hop, so unfortunate fight, and it's going to end up with a round of 17-11 here. VOoid with about also 4.5 maybe shots right at the beginning there. And a slightly sketchier second grouping there. Having to do a lot of slashes instead of arrow shots, and just missing a lot of arrow shots early. And VOoid, your health, sir. Please attend to your health. I am the commissioner of the Department of Health and Safety, and you are in violation of the making me nervous policy. And VOoid does survive. Excellent survival skills there. But gap now at 47 seconds. VOoid, I have to say, you made us all very nervous there. Good survival skills, does not get hit by any of those projectiles, does not get hit by any of the worm heads, but you saw how that second cycle where he was just getting knocked around really impacted everything remaining in the fight. So that is a fight where very important to do well in the first few cycles. Each cycle gets progressively harder because the worms get progressively less predictable. It sometimes seems to me that short hops get more and more likely as the fight goes on. So like many things in this game, fast strats actually are safe strats. The faster that you dispatch with things, the sooner you get to stop thinking about them. You do see VOoid now going for the fake flippers that Louis has already done. This is a screen transition glitch. You're telling the game you're doing 2 things at once. One of them is transitioning the screen. The other one is getting into the water, and it gets confused and lets you do both at once, even though you do not have the flippers. Louis is making his first track up Death Mountain. This is out of 3. Already seeing that annoying dead rock enemy that can block you. You also have cabbages falling from the sky. And later you have some eye monsters. Of course, not the only eye monsters in this game, which is full of enormous anthropomorphic eyes. And Louis is making his way into the Tower of Hera. We saw him lose only a little bit of health around where VOoid is right now. And some cabbages and so forth. We do see Louis, we do see VOoid with a much better Death Mountain, just much better RNG on all of these enemies. Still very poor, only 7 rupees each. Louis with 5 extra arrows. And a second for an arrow pickup somewhere. VOoid very nervous, thought he was about to dash off and would have had to do the whole warp sequence again. You saw him switching his dash there. And dashing into that only problem in his entire Death Mountain. And the gap between these two, you can now see, is basically the entirety of this tile room. And VOoid not doing himself any favors going for this boom dash into the invulnerability and missing it. Does get behind those blocks, does not get the invulnerability, so no coffee break for him. But I would say coffee is not necessarily what we need on the right side of the screen. I would say we need some Xanax and beta blockers. Some Valium maybe. Interesting that Louis is going for that switch with 5 hearts. We don't expect he will need to pick up any safety hearts later on, but he does hit that switch anyway. Oh my goodness, Louis going for, I do not recommend this. I see so many players going for this. Who did I see going for this earlier? Oh, and Louis, you hit the switch, you did not need a mirror. So Louis missing that bomb jump strat and missing it entirely. Using the rando approved strat, I do not recommend that strat. I understand it can be slightly quicker, but the bonk is just better. And then mirrors when he did not need to after having hit that switch. So VOoid now back ahead for the first time since that terrible room. And after everything that has happened to VOoid, the Eastern Palace Big Key Skip and the Land Molas, we do have VOoid back in front, although they are both in this large lobby room. Louis manages to get a bonk in there. Thank you, Louis. No reason not to use that bonk strat. I do not approve of using this rando strat in non-rando. We did see, it was TGH who I commented just yesterday, who also missed that bomb jump using the rando strat. Use that bonk, that gives you so many extra pixels to bomb jump from. And we see VOoid almost through this fight with Louis just starting it. But VOoid getting bodied just a little bit, he is waiting, and gets it. And Louis gets it as well, and we have a race on our hands. So close now. We have a 23:32 for VOoid, and a 23:38 for Louis. So a 6-second difference. After all that mess from both players coming out of this, we have a race on our hands. We have a 1 blue ball difference between the two of them. And I think both racers somehow will realize that, at this point, it's time to do it. Everything has been very strange so far, but we're making our way towards the Master Sword. After that, we will make our way towards Agamemnon's Tower in Hyrule Castle, and then we will make our way into the Dark World. And it looks like things have evened up heading into the Dark World, where most of the content of this game is. And these runners have a new lease on life. A less than stellar Light World. I think they're both going to recommit themselves to this race and show us some very good Dark World coming in with this very close very small gap between the two of them right now. And this really shows you how bad that bomb jump fall is. You know, VOoid had many things. You saw him in that big key room for so long, and you saw him in that Lammo fight for so long. Whereas Louis, just one mistake made all the difference. We do see Louis still with that 5-arrow advantage. That will matter. Louis also has a 1 bomb advantage because of a drop he got on his second way up the Tower of Hera. Remember that he did not need to do that one because he had hit the switch. He did not need to mirror there. Just a great tip for kids learning out there. Now Greenham makes a great point. Going to have just not quite enough rupees to make it into Dark World, to make it into the Palace of Darkness. They're going to get 6 more automatically, but they need 8. So there's a $5, 5 rupee pot that they can get, or they may be looking for 1 rupee drops in the bushes right here, where they can just dash back and forth. There are also the gold knights at the beginning of Agadim's Tower will often have drops. So you see just 1 green rupee there, not worth going back for. Would have needed 2. And same on Louis' side. Now Agadim's Tower is actually a high execution part of the game. Very underestimated the skill required to get through all these rooms quickly. We're going to see VOoid probably maybe going for Din Din here, maybe going to clink his sword and use a double spin, given the low number of arrows. So we may see a strat divergence from the two of them. No, we're seeing VOoid, and he does get his blue drop. Both going for the same strat for this. Oh no, and VOoid getting knocked around again. Louis doing a perfect strat there, and oh, they're so close now. They're so close now. VOoid with a bad first 2 rooms here, and Louis so hot on his heels. Just incredible, you know. They have certainly found a way to give us an entertaining race here. We're not sure what's going to happen room to room. Both are playing very high level at some rooms, and then things just don't go the way we expect. VOoid did get that rupee drop, so he doesn't need to get a pot here. Whereas Louis does, as Greenham predicted, get that pot on the bridge there. Neither gets the key dash there, no worries about that. And VOoid out of arrows. A bad room there from Louis, and he's down to 2 arrows. Low on arrows as well. Spin, whereas we have a bad Circle of Pots RNG from VOoid, and actually a good Circle of Pots RNG from Louis. But it's VOoid who has the much faster Circle of Pots, with Louis missing one of his pot throws. It's just room. We're going room by room here, folks. And I have to say, if I am doing this room by room for the next hour, then I'm going to be the one who needs a coffee break afterwards. Because watching both of these great runners, but very unpredictable runners today, it seems. And just keeping an eye on everything is very exciting. We are obviously worried right now about the blue balls. We're worried about how RNG is going to treat these fellas. Both of them with 28 zaps. 28 is respectable. Both had maybe a minute worth of really big mistakes already in the light world, but still going to be thinking about that sub 90 run and thinking about that Dark World. Neither, I believe, has had a blue ball yet. So if this continues, well, just the 1 blue ball for VOoid, I think, out of these first 4. And Louis has not had one yet. Louis does have one. I shouldn't have even, I should know better at this point. You know, this is not, it's not rocket science. You don't say that it's happening if it looks like it's happening. VOoid gets his second there. Yeah, Link Orange, you missed some crazy stuff. VOoid there getting his third blue ball and his fourth. Louis maybe getting his third there. No, that was only Louis' second, and Louis pulls ahead by pure luck of the draw. And with 2 versus 4, that is an 18-second, 2 versus 5 now, a 24-second or 25-second difference, including the lightning. So Louis is going to be way ahead. Excuse me, way ahead now. This does not make up for the bomb jump fall, but it's certainly going to put him very, very, very well ahead. And we're going to see a 30-53 sword up for Louis. Gives us a nice sword beam there just to emphasize that it's time to go in this Dark World. And with this, he has a really new lease on life here with those 2 blue balls, you know. And my hope is that both runners are saying, okay, somehow we got ourselves into this mess with all of the events of Light World. Certainly not your standard Light World from either player, but we are going to just head into the difficult stuff now. And I don't think this race is out of twists. You know, I think there are many twists yet to come in this race as we're really getting into the more difficult technical parts of the run. And for these 2 amazing runners who have world records in other Super Nintendo games, I believe this is where we will see them shine. We're going to see some very impressive stuff over the next hour or so. So definitely stick with us. We've got a gap of, at most, I believe, between these 2 runners. And I just recommend, you don't need to sit on the edge of your seat, but you should remain sitting and watching with us here on Speed Gaming 3. So we're seeing both runners just getting a whole bunch of keys to start out here. You need a key to get another key. You need another key to get the other key. Louis is here getting the big key, and then he'll need just one more key before he goes and gets the hammer. The hammer is such an important item. It opens up so much in the game, and it does a lot of damage, and is also necessary to get downstairs in this dungeon, as well as to open up Turtle Rock, and to get a bunch of other things. Louis forgetting, you know, the focus has not quite returned. Louis for a second there thought he had already gotten the hammer and was going to his menu to use the arrow on that thingamajigger, but he had not gotten the hammer. Gets a nice heart drop there. VOoid having some trouble with this platform jumper arrow thing. Just, I have questions. I have questions about what's going on here. And VOoid does get that fairy. You remember he messed up that room where we're doing the dash for the prize pack manipulation in Aghanim's tower. He gets the fairy. He has some problems, but he does get an incredibly nice hammer jump. So saving some time there. Does get that bonk, and remember that VOoid was also lower on the arrows and the bombs, so we see just a 1 arrow and a 1 bomb advantage for Louis. Louis had 8 bombs. Really, that's about as many bombs as you ever see anybody have in this game. So, I don't know. Good for him, I suppose, but maybe not. Maybe it's more than he wants to have, really. Louis gets a great room there. Does not use any extra arrows, which at his low arrow count, he really did not want to. Yeah, Louis saying in chat, definitely didn't get confused twice. But he may have. I think he may be lying to us there. Now, VOoid gets a great arrow drop and gets to just dash through that room. He got the 5 instead of the 10, but it's still very happy that he does not need to stop his dash there. Louis going into the turtle room now. We're going to hope to hammer a bunch of these turtles and then spin the rest and then hammer the remaining ones at the end. And just a beautiful turtle room from Louis there. He is avoiding the fiesta of the Tortugas. VOoid having a great room there as well. And we're on to the Helmosaur King fight. Louis wants to get 17 hammer hits on this mask, and then wants to get 8 points of damage onto this damage point, you know, kind of the core, like shoot the core in Gradius. And he chooses to do it with 7 slashes, and then pulls the wall thinking he had done 8, and then gets his 8th slash in. Certainly both players showing us how well they know this game, but maybe doing not exactly the right thing at exactly the right time. VOoid does get knocked out of getting that last spin. Has to do 2 more slashes at the end, but really a fine fight from both players. I don't have any complaints about that fight. And we're seeing around with everything that happened, again, everything that happened in pod, I believe we've still got around that 20 to 25 second difference that we came in with. Sorry, I accidentally hit F5 on my Discord, so hopefully I'm still coming through. You guys can let me know. So now we've got a bit of Overworld ahead of us. We're about to go pick up the flute and then open it up with the swag duck. Our classic duck here. I would say we're seeing the first item dash, but it took us a little while to see it there from Louis. A little bit. And let's see how it goes for VOoid. It goes down. And also doesn't quite get it first try. But a little less of a problem in the recovery. Remember, this game is sometimes about what's supposed to happen. But just as often, it's about what happens when what's supposed to happen doesn't happen. It's much like life in that way. Now we're about to pick up our flute. I believe that was a nice quick warp from Louis. A quick warp saves 34 frames, I believe, a little bit over half a second over the normal warp. And it's visually, it's easy to tell from the audio visual when you get the quick warp. I believe VOoid got it as well there. Louis getting his nice super speed and giving us some flute spam. Louis, just thank you. Thank you for the item spam. I'm not there to do it, but I love the item spam. VOoid with the same super speed here. Slightly jankier movement, you might say. And we're going to see both of them on this cutscene at basically the exact same time. So this is still a very close race. There's a lot of game left. All the most difficult parts of the game are remaining, and definitely still some RNG. So 20-second difference. Louis needing to slash that guard. I think maybe he spawned him a little bit earlier than he wanted to, because often you can just dash up through that guard. And we're going to see them going into Thieves Town, which Thieves Town is often one of the easiest dungeons, but when things go wrong, when you have low health, when things move in the wrong way, it can suddenly become very difficult to deal with. So we'll see how both players deal with all the things this game throws at them in Thieves Town right here. Mad Daleks, as your name seems to be spelled, Mad Daleks 21. VOoid has a 126.35 or so, and Louis has a 127.44, if speedrun.com is to be believed. I sort of feel that I may have seen Louis with a lower PB, but maybe he was simply on pace for a lower PB recently. Both are very good runners. Louis is a world record holder in many categories in Super Mario World, and VOoid is a world record holder in many Donkey Kong Country categories, especially Donkey Kong Country 2. Louis doing a great strat there, but dashing in just not quite the right place. Now Louis does get a beautiful Hellway dash there. He gets the right pixel, and the RNG is there, and he just dashes straight up through on each side. Really a beautiful Hellway from Louis there. Louis saying he has a 127.29, so actually less than a minute separating these runners' PBs, as we see Louis breaking that floor so that we can kill Blind in the blind fight later on. Interestingly enough, just thinking about the gap between these two, you know, even if it widened to about 25 seconds, that is exactly the difference from there's 5 blue balls on VOoid's side versus 2 blue balls on Louis' side. And just keep that in mind, that this is a game where 25 seconds is very hard to come by, especially at these high levels. We have seen both runners make individual mistakes that costed at least, just cost is the way you say that, at least 25 seconds. So definitely in a period where the RNG appears to be mattering in this race, but also where the RNG could have been made not a factor with some more precise play from both. Now we do see Louis getting his golden gloves. He's a boxer. And we're going to see the blind fight. Now, everybody who's watched these races know, what is the blind fight? Everybody say it with me in chat. What do we say is the blind fight? You guys all got it right. It's very scripted, and we actually saw Louis missing one of his pokes and having to slash, but despite that, he stayed on script. So not only is it scripted, it's not a very precise script. You see VOoid messing up kind of near the end there too, but no worries. Blind just kind of sits there and waits for VOoid to hit him. I believe we do have that 20-second difference still. Izzy, we do not do that. Yeah, that's not what we do. We like playing the video game called Link to the Past, or in Japanese, Kamigami no Triforce, which means, come on game, give me the Triforce. Now, this split, Skull Woods, this segment, has two sections. The first section is the one where we are picking up the Tempered Sword, and then we will make our way into Skull Woods. And each part is really only about 2 minutes each. Maybe about 2:15 each. It takes us 2 minutes and 15 seconds to get into Skull Woods, and then another 2:15 to beat it. For very good players. For me, slightly longer. Now, this Tempered Sword is our favorite sword. If you are a speedrunner of this game, it's the one that is very powerful and that you're most used to using for most of the game. I guess you spend around 24 or 25 minutes with the Fighter Sword, and you spend around 20 minutes with the Master Sword, and then you spend the rest of the time with the Tempered Sword. So it's the one you're used to. It just does a great deal of damage. Can use it to kill anything in the game. And we don't worry about that gold sword, which is very laggy and unnecessary. So this very first room in Skull Woods is one of the hardest. We are going to manipulate the mummy's movements with our movements and hope that they don't come up and hit us, but you know, sometimes they do, as you saw with Louis. So 2 hearts down, but still gets a very nice room any time with getting hit, and just will have to be careful in the rest. You saw VOoid doing a slightly different strat there, where he walked cardinally instead of diagonally. I believe that makes the mummy's movements just slightly more predictable. A little bit of a problem with that mummy placement for VOoid entering that room, but works it out. Louis now knows that it is time to use his bonks and not simply to hope that he is on the right pixel. So he makes it over to that fire rod and then makes it out. Only 4 hearts remaining. Certainly not worth worrying about, but this Mothula fight can be a little tough. These mummies can do a lot of damage. We're going to see another Hellway with a lot of mummies in it. So the more hearts, the better. And we will probably see Louis playing it somewhat safe in the remainder of this dungeon. Another extra menu from Louis there. Just didn't hit the... You just need to tap right for that menu. A great thing about this game is if you play it enough, you can do the menus in your sleep. You can just remember every menu that comes up in No Major Glitches. Oh, and Louis, oh no, he had to throw an extra fire rod shot there. And now we are tied, ladies and gentlemen. After missing that fire rod shot and getting picked up by the hand, we are absolutely tied. And Louis is even back behind with picking up that extra magic pot. I don't really know what Louis was going for there. And this is just so sketchy. This is so sketchy, Louis. We're all rooting for you, but this is so sketchy, the way you're trying to resolve this situation. And he gets bunny beamed. There's so many questions that we have right now. We have an encyclopedia of questions for you, Louis. Meanwhile, on VOoid's side, he is onto the Mothula fight. Mothula not being so nice, but then being quite nice and coming out into the middle. And we are going to see a crystal catch of 49-24 from VOoid. We have to hope for a very good fight from Louis to make up for all the things that have happened. He has to not get hit here, and he does get hit. Mothula does come down from the top of the screen and does body Louis. Now we are going to see Louis having to pick up some magic to redo this. It can be, with optimal play, only about a minute of time loss here. But there have been so many questions, and I need to stop saying things that I notice when I'm commentating this game, because it seems that everything I say comes true. That health coming true there from Louis just becoming a problem in the way that we thought it might be. And Louis is caught behind Torch and having a health problem again, down to 3 hearts. He doesn't need to kill this thing. Just so many questions with this latter part of Skull Woods getting bunnied. He does get a fairy. He has wasted his Turtle Rock Fairy. Neither player will have their Turtle Rock Fairy, but Louis thinks it's what he needs now to just have a very confident fight and get out of this situation. We will see what future Louis thinks about this decision that present Louis has made here. And Louis does get through Mothula, and we have just such a, with VOoid picking up the sign on the right side here, going into Ice Palace, we have the biggest gap of this race yet. We do have a gap now of over a minute, I believe, between these two players. So many mishaps in the end of that Skull Woods for Louis. Very unfortunate to see, but as I said, I don't think the twists and turns are even now yet completed with this race. So we will see how Louis rectifies this situation, and we fully expect that he can make a comeback here. Louis a little bit slow to cancel out of that map. Feeling maybe a little resignation on the left side of the screen. But shouldn't be. You know, VOoid has not been showing us quite what he's capable of, and there's so many things that can happen in this run, and Louis just needs to stick with it. If he wants to stay in this tournament, this is a single elimination bracket. One race and then it's over. Neither player has felt like they are really happy with their play this race, but it is nowhere near over. We still have at least 35 minutes of gameplay remaining. VOoid with a problem in Eastern, a problem in Desert, and then 5 blue balls. And Louis with a problem in Hera and then a death at Mothula after having 2 blue balls. And that's how we get into this situation where the gap between the two of them is almost 90 seconds with the advantage to VOoid. Now, we've done a good job. VOoid has done a great job through Ice Palace so far. I haven't commentated any of it. That's my bad. But a good bomb jump, good spike room, good every room. And we're going to see him coming up on this Cold Stare fight with quite a lot of equipment. And it should be a pretty standard Cold Stare fight for him. We do see Louis on the left still at full hearts, in good shape going forward. And just a beautiful classic middle speed strat from VOoid. He gets the poke, the double spin, and then the slash. The dash through that room, and even picks up a dropped heart on the way back to full health, and is about to do his bomb jump. He gets to the right pixel with some little adjustments there. And we're about to see the most interesting dungeon in the game on the right, that's Swamp Palace. Let's see how the Cold Stare fight goes for Louis. Louis does have that 3-bomb to 1 advantage. VOoid will just quickly rectify that in Swamp Palace, I believe. Neither have many arrows at all, which is not a great situation. You want to have 20 arrows going into Mire. Neither will have that many. And another great fight from Louis. He just does the 7 slashes, or 6 slashes, or however many. I don't even know how to count. Now, I'm trying to speculate on the mindset of the 2 runners right now. Going into Swamp, which is really a bit of a snooze fest of a dungeon that have happened so far in this race, and now with this gap of about 90 seconds between the 2 of them due to the end of that Skull Woods. Just have to wonder, what decisions are they going to make going forward? To assume understands that there are some question marks in his own play today. And maybe we'll be trying to play it safe going forward and preserve this 90-second lead. Louis, on the other hand, probably understands that he's going to have to take his play to another level. Even if VOoid makes a mistake that would cost 90 seconds, it would have to be a death of some type, I believe. Both players getting hit a little bit by some enemy movement there. Definitely Swamp is a split where enemy movement is very, very unpredictable. I apologize if my commentary so far has seemed negative. Just thinking about it now, you know, the thing to take away is that both of these players are at a level where you notice their mistakes much more than the good things they do. In other words, you really expect most rooms to be pretty much pristine from these players. It's one of the things. It's easy to get spoiled watching certain players and just saying the only thing I notice is the mistake. It's an interesting thing that there's a certain level at which you're doing everything right, but it also looks exactly the way it's supposed to, so it's difficult to notice. And life is like that as well sometimes, where sometimes you need to mess up to get people to notice you. It's just an unfortunate part. We do see a slight high five there. And if we think about this race, part of what has made it entertaining has been the mistakes. If both players had played perfectly, then it would simply be that blue ball gap between the two of them. But we've had a lot of ups and downs on both sides, and that gives us a lot to talk and think about. Certainly an exciting race that is not over yet. We see Louis making his way over to the hook shot that VOoid has already gotten. I do expect VOoid to pick up both the bomb and the arrows here. Good pickups. And we will probably see Louis picking up. I think we saw him got a 5-arrow drop, so actually both will be on similar arrow counts now. Louis will be slightly happier with his bomb and arrow counts. 2 is really the number of bombs that you need coming out of Swamp. Having 1 extra is just a little more comfortable. And some people like to keep that bomb going into Turtle Rock. I think probably Louis we will see sacrifice the bomb in Mire for a switch to Fire Rod, which saves the menu. We do see VOoid with low health on this, not the best Argus fight. And waiting for Argus at the end there. And not using the Fire Rod. I don't know if he normally does, but certainly at this stage, having gone down to 2.5 hearts, very low number of hearts for Swamp, just chooses to go ahead and end the fight, and picks up his crystal at around 102.43. We will have to see how Louis does with that crystal. I don't know if Louis will be going for the 0 cycle here. It could definitely save some time. Yeah. Louis getting those arrow pots as I predicted. And coming into the Argus fight. Oh, and we see, almost with the 0 cycle despite getting hit there, a very good fight from Louis, certainly faster than VOoid's, and we're going to see him, yes, see him just demolishing the end of that fight there with that Fire Rod strat. Certainly a little time saved at the end there, and the gap now around 80 seconds. And VOoid, unfortunately, with his super speed falling off the mountain there, if you touch any mountains, any ledge when you're in super speed state, you instantly fall off. You get an instant short hop. A short hop is when you're on a ledge and you hit A right away, but in the super speed state, it's kind of like you're always automatically doing everything that the A button does, and so you automatically fall right off of the mountain. So slight time loss there for VOoid, and these are those little things that if I were Louis, I would be thinking, there are little things in this game that can happen anywhere. So you just have to play very solidly, keep your precision up, and it's not in your hands, it's in Void's hands. But we have seen some question marks in Void's play, and you just want to own your game and play your game at the moment, and there are still some twists and turns left in this race, I believe. Now we do see both players getting their stuff, getting the Ether Medallion and getting the Ice Rod. The Ether Medallion will get us into Mire here, and the Ice Rod we will need to kill Trinex. Nice Louis ending his dash there to get the quick warp here. Nothing special with the bird there, and that's okay. We're kind of agnostic on memes here in the No Major Glitches community. Now we are seeing Void in this Mire 2 does not get the cycle as there was a Popo of the Wizrobe. So the 0 cycle in that room, or 1 cycle, or whatever it is that we call it, we want to kill all the Wizrobes before they disappear the first time. There's a few strats to do it, and Void went for the safer strat, but with that Popo in the way, it was impossible to use his beam for the kill of that Wizroom. We will see Louis coming onto the same room very soon, and we'll see how he does it. Meanwhile, Void is going over to get his big key. And there's a cutscene that we're going to see on Void's side. Misses the slash on this Buzz Blob. This Barry, I believe we call it. Gets through this room with the slugs very nicely. That's a very dangerous room. The slugs do 4 hearts of damage. And we'll light these torches. The big key. Louis with a bonk and an almost fall in that first room. Let's see how Wizrobes goes for him. And perfect room. And you saw that Louis shot the fire rod to the right instead of the beam. And the fire rod, I believe, is a thinner shot, so it went past the Popo. And that's the strat you want to go for there. Void going for the beam for some reason, I don't know. So a couple time saves already on the split for Louis. There was that fall on Death Mountain for Void, and there was the faster Mire 2 Wizrobes. And we are now seeing Void going down towards the basement. He loses the Spark Gamble, gets knocked back, but it's still at a great heart count. Louis has to knock aside a few things with his fire rod that are in his way, but he does fill his magic back up. Meanwhile, Void getting the Cane of Samaria as Louis does this torch room. Void now in the spike room. Gets through it nice and quickly, but does bonk on the wall down to 7 hearts. We'll probably see him get at least 1 safety heart in this next room. And now to 8 hearts. You really want 7 hearts for Vitreous. Mire is a dungeon where you have to lose a lot of hearts. In that spike room, and then with the damage boost strat on Vitreous, the boss of this dungeon, more animatronic eyeballs. Anthropomorphic animatronic, whatever I'm trying to say there. I'm not quite sure which. So we have to say both players are doing basically what they need to do. Louis gaining time so far this split with more precise play, but Void avoiding major mistakes so far and keeping the gap pretty significant. We will have to see how his Vitreous fight goes. as he hits this block and goes back upstairs. A good spike room from Louis as well. VOoid does get hit by that fire snake that he's supposed to be able to dash past. Let's see how Vitreous goes. He looks to be maybe doing the strat that only requires 5 hearts of damage. And there he gets it perfectly. Beautiful fight, actually. Just, wow. So, VOoid's boss fights on Cold Stare and Vitreous were really phenomenal. And are keeping him in the lead. Whereas, and just props to him for having that strat, having the low heart strat, and going for it. He did have the 7 hearts for the normal strat, but he did perfectly fine with the low heart strat. We do see Louis getting rid of that bomb, as I expected. I'd hit that switch. We do see VOoid ending this cutscene with Louis still yet to go into the Vitreous fight. It looks like Louis is doing the same strat, but does get the lightning. Ends with many more hearts. Some difficult enemy movement on Death Mountain here for VOoid, but gets past it fine, does not lose any hearts, and just knocks everything out of the way. Again, avoiding the major time loss, not worrying about the frames, worrying about the seconds instead. I approve of that right now in the situation that VOoid is in. These races are all about situations. You go from one situation to another. You're in a situation with respect to your bombs, with respect to your arrows, with respect to your health, with respect to where the other racer is, with respect to your own psychological state. And you just need to assess all these situations at once and make decisions about how to react to all the various differences that you'll see. And it's a great thing about this game that there can be a lot of differences in enemy movement and in drops and in things like that from run to run. Now keep in mind, one situation both runners are in is that both runners have already used their fairy drop, so both runners will be very concerned about health throughout this Turtle Rock. We may see some slightly abnormal strats from them, slightly slower to conserve some health. Slightly worse, slightly more problems there from Louis in the Waffle House, but gets it done. VOoid getting that nice early hook shot to the left there in that torch room. Gets the hook shot invulnerability past both of these and will go through the damage boost back through. And gets the very fast strat. Very well done there by VOoid. While Louis missing that hook speed, but no worries. And VOoid coming up on the Chain Chomps room. And if there's one room where Louis is thinking, maybe I can save some time, this Chain Chomps can be very problematic. But it looks like VOoid is just going to go to the right here and has no problem with it at all, using that invulnerability from the blocks with the Cane of Samaria strat, the standard strat there. Now, one slight difference. We did see Louis picking up the bomb at the beginning there. VOoid will have to pick up a bomb later in this dungeon. You do need a bomb to get down into Ice Armors in Ganon's Tower. VOoid onto Pokies 1. And gets the best RNG there. Can just grab that key and dash to the right. Very, very favorable Turtle Rock for VOoid so far here. Has to think that he is doing himself a lot of favors here. And not bad from Louis, but, you know, if the two players play equivalently well, that is good news for VOoid, not for Louis, because of the gap that we're seeing right here. Oh, and VOoid getting hit there right as the invulnerability ends, down to 3.5 hearts. Not a great look. We'll have to see how he deals with this. At this point, there are many things that can one-shot Louis. Pokies, almost rollers. We're going to be very concerned about Louis' health going forward. Grabbing those arrows. Both players will need just the one more 5-pack of arrows that is automatic in Ganon's tower, and then they'll have enough to kill ice armors. Louis also getting that same good RNG that VOoid got and dealing with it in exactly the same way. Excellent performance on that room by both of them. VOoid down to 4.5 hearts, and Louis with a great chest turn there. Now VOoid, again, also now VOoid, there are many things that can one-shot him. That can end this race almost immediately. VOoid being very safe with this laser skip, because getting hit by the laser and falling into the hole would do 5 hearts of damage. So awareness there, maybe overthinking it, but maybe doing exactly what he needed to do. Louis getting a few extra hearts there. I approve of those hearts. I do not approve of those bombs, but they were right in the way. 9 bombs. It's really better to have just the 1 bomb for menus. Now we're on to this boss, Trinex, on VOoid's side. And he does a great backdoor strat. Does not skip what he's trying to skip there, but I don't think, but it's still exactly what you expect from that fight. No worries. Can tank a hit here if he needs to, and I believe our audio just switched to his. As we're going into Ganon's tower for him. We'll see how Louis has exactly the same health situation that we had on VOoid's side. We'll see how he deals with this. He does not wait the way VOoid did, and that's very notable, the different mindsets of these two players. Louis right now is thinking, I just need to go for everything. I need to go, go, go. And VOoid, meanwhile, is thinking, I can play at a level that is below my peak and play it safe and survive. Louis with so many problems in this maze, but gets through. I was very nervous there. Those Pokies can just jump into you. It's very easy to lose a lot of health in that room if you mess up the strat the way Louis messed it up. Props to him for the presence of mind, but he is right now back to close to that 90 seconds gap, I believe, that we saw a few dungeons ago. The time he made up in the past few dungeons, I believe he has lost again. And VOoid, as VOoid makes his way into Ganon's tower and Louis finishes off this Trinex fight. You know, all props to Louis for keeping it together. Both players are on pace for a sub-90 run, for a sub-130 run, but we have to say that the opportunities for Louis are dwindling. Opportunities for places where he can make up this gap that happened in Skull Woods. And remember, there were a lot of mishaps in that Skull Woods. There was the getting grabbed and there was the getting bunnied, and then there was the death, but it was really the death that caused the gap. And the other areas only evened them up, and it was the death that caused almost the entirety of this gap, the death in Skull Woods. And both players right now are just thinking about the end of the game. We, meanwhile, as we watch them go through Ganon's tower, we should reflect on how eventful this whole race has been. Every dungeon, there was something that happened that was unexpected, I believe. except maybe Ice Palace. I believe both players had a phenomenal Ice Palace. VOoid does get hit during that hookshot and vulnerability strat. Has had a few mistakes in this Ganon's Tower so far. He hit those blocks at the wrong time early on, but not anything that should really make him concerned about his ability to pull this out with the gap as it stands right now. We will see him making his way towards Ice Armors as Louis is just entering this dungeon. Again, VOoid needing a second try for that warp skip. It's just a few seconds here and there, and it's not quite enough. And Louis will need to show great play on top of these small mistakes that VOoid is making, or we will need a bigger change in an area like Landmo 2 or Moldorm 2 or Aga 2 to make a difference with the way the race stands right now. Well, this will change a little bit. VOoid is out of arrows and is missing these arrows. Okay, so VOoid getting hit by one of the Armos Knights and running out of arrows. He should use his last arrow at some point. So big deal there, and you will remember that VOoid skipped that 5-arrow pot because at 14 arrows you figure you'll get to 19 on Ice Armors and that'll be enough. He skipped that 5-arrow pot that Louis got, but an extra 5 arrows at the end there would have meant a great deal of time would have been saved with those extra 5 arrows. So we have to think, in a situation like this, going for those 5 arrows was probably the right move, where you are not going to PB and you know that all you need to do is stay on top of your stuff. VOoid is also in a health situation. He has a great Mimics 2 there, but is down to 7.5 hearts. Louis has also lost some hearts, and for some reason goes to a medallion instead of the arrows. Perhaps has seen what's been going on VOoid's screen and is thinking that now the nerves are kicking back in because he now thinks, if I just play my perfect game, perhaps that'll be enough at this point. And yeah, in this life, I'm sure we've all experienced times when even being perfect was not enough, where there was just nothing you could do, where you were just in a situation where people were going to say no to you no matter what. No matter how perfect you were, they just had this opposition. Now VOoid pulling out that Fire Rod to finish that room. He has a lot of problems in this gauntlet so far, with those skeletons and then with that that conveyor. Now onto this last room. Gets a very good last room, and we'll see how Landmo 2 goes for him. Meanwhile, Louis, I believe, getting very good Mimics rooms, has saved some time so far in this. But a very good Landmo 2, a 1 cycle from VOoid, and he is stabilizing here. He does skip that heart. With 5.5 hearts, it's certainly enough to finish, but it's certainly less than he wants to have. Gets a heart from that Wizrobe. Wizrobe drop a lot of hearts. A couple more heart drops there. In fact, 3 of them in the same room, but he skips them. Problem in the skeleton room for Louis, the same room that had troubled VOoid somewhat, but better conveyor room, and Louis with the better gauntlets so far. Does have to stop that dash, but that's okay, and just slams right into that skeleton's face. And I believe only lost just that one last heart that you just saw him lose in that entire gauntlet. So that's great news for him, but very bad patterns on these Landmos. He only gets 2 hits on Landmos, and he's going to have a 3 cycle at best in this Landmo 2, and that, I believe, a 4 cycle he's going to have. He has a worse Landmo 2 than his Landmo 1 was. And now this is going to be close to it. We're really concerned now about Louis' situation after that Landmo 2. And Pink is saying, wow, in the chat. Yes, that's just about the worst Landmo 2 patterns I have ever seen. And meanwhile, VOoid with a good Moldorm 2 is now going on to his Aga 2. We have to think, given the time right now, VOoid is probably on pace for a good 128, which, if you consider the way the run started for him and some of the problems in the middle as well, is great. This Ganon's Tower has not been perfect, but he has stabilized and is in great shape now. I believe he has gotten 3 hits so far. He's not happy with his Aga 2 so far. I'm not sure if that counted as 1 or 2. He's getting hit by some things. He's getting distracted by some things. He's missing shots that he doesn't need to miss. But he does get 2 at the end there. And certainly is not happy about this. You're seeing him with the poke. But it's good enough. It's good enough. And I'm sure he has practiced the Ganon fight enough to be confident going in with 5.5 hearts. There are a few things that could really change the fate of this race at this point. Louis, unfortunately, aggro's Moldorm and gets knocked off of Moldorm 2. Having poked Moldorm, you do not want to poke Moldorm with the Tempered Sword. You want to do 4 damage with the spin and then 2 damage with a slash or a dash. But Moldorm came at Louis and he had to poke, which caused 1 damage, which aggroed the beast. VOoid getting messed up with being hit out of his pattern, and I don't know if he has gotten the 1+1 here, and he does get hit. He does get killed. So this is giving an opportunity for Louis, but with that Landmo 2 and Moldorm 2, we have to wonder just what kind of opportunity is this, because Louis is still going into the Aga 2 fight. So VOoid still has the opportunity to center himself and say, I know how to do this fight. I do not need to worry. I do not need to stress about this fight. I have done this fight in practice so many times. VOoid getting maybe an RNG that he prefers there. But it does get hit, and barely gets in the final 4 slashes there. And almost getting hit by a final fire bat thing. A fire bat hero, you might say. Getting good warp RNG here. Only 4 hearts, cannot take a hit, cannot tank any hits. Wow, it's just such an exciting moment. VOoid, all he needs to do is stay steady, but this has not been a steady race for either player. So many things to think about. All the things that happened in that Ganon's Tower for both players now mattering so much. With the time difference here, Louis about to get this 1+1 on his first try, not dying the way that VOoid did, but VOoid now comfortably into the 3rd phase, and we have to think he is going to play it completely risk-free. He knows, I'm sure he is watching, he knows what the situation is here. And he has been getting great triples. Another nice hit there. And he gets the kill at a 128.40, an excellent time from VOoid. Despite so many question marks in this entire race, he came through for us, and I don't know, exciting ending. I don't know what to say. And Louis will be finishing up the fight here with the torch glitch, and hopefully we will be able to talk to both of these players. I don't even know if I have questions. There's so many moments in this race, and I don't know which ones specifically to ask about. Hopefully they will just tell us how they're feeling in general. And we do see Louis
closing it out there. Nice time gap of almost exactly a minute there. And not to nail the point home too much, but a minute is exactly what I said that Mothzilla death would cost. The most crucial moment in that race. But really there were a lot of moments, almost every dungeon we had. A lot of back and forth. Very exciting race. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I get a chance to talk to these racers now. Welcome, VOoid. Congratulations on your win. How do you feel about this race? Obviously, a lot of question marks for both players. What was your mindset like during the race?
Try to not go on tilt.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we all saw places where you made a mistake and you kind of refocused yourself afterwards.
Yeah, well, Light Wall was just like really bad on top of 5 blue balls, but like I thought for first half of Dark World I played like pretty alright, and then I had a nice Armos party, which was unfortunate. The death to Ganon was kind of expected because like the Fire Bat's spawn caught me by surprise for because of the Ice Armos.
Right, I had forgotten about that actually by the time I got to Ganon, but for anybody watching who doesn't know what VOoid means, discovered, and actually we caught a cheater this way. I shouldn't say we, I didn't put any effort into it, but some very intelligent people caught a cheater this way. The patterns of the Fire Bats on Ganon are determined by the time you exit the Ice Armos fight and maybe 1 or 2 other things in the run. So if you get the Ice Armos fight right, they will always occur the same way. Because VOoid at the end of that Ice Armors fight, standard Fire Bat patterns on Ganon. How are you feeling? Let me ask you about just a couple moments. So the first moment I want to ask about, so obviously the moment after the first big mistake was with the big key in Eastern.
Yeah, that was something.
What was your thought process like after that? You're barely 10 minutes into a run.
Well, I was just like, I have time to save on desert, and like if I don't get screwed over too bad by blue balls, this can still be like a pretty good race. But like, I was really frustrated, like right off the bat from that mistake, because like it was basically as costly as a death. So yeah,
and then,
I was wondering if like I could like maybe salvage it better, but like I don't have enough experience with like screwing up the boss key skip on like no reset runs. Like usually if I fail that trick, then I just reset. But
yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of what I was observing, that the backup didn't quite seem to be there. How about in a Land Mollis? Because during desert you made up a little bit of time, but then you got to Land Mollis and you were just getting knocked around.
Yeah, like my desert was actually really good. I saw my upstairs time. It was, I think, 444. Like, I barely missed 443, and that was like that's unusual for me. Usually my average is maybe 446. So I was like, if my upstairs is good and my land mollusk fight is good, then like it's a pretty free gold. But I don't know. I actually don't know what happened on land mollusk. Like, I thought my first cycle was fine, but then like on
it
cycles
like
afterwards, then like all my arrow shots were like offset by just a little bit. So
it looked like the first cycle went well, and then in the second cycle, kind of like all the worms went straight at you and kind of knocked you away. And so you had low health and low arrows, and it seemed like you were just kind of flustered for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, I like when I saw I only had one heart left, then like I just went into don't die mode, because like I already made such a huge mistake in Eastern. I didn't want to fuck anything else up for like the rest of Light World.
Makes sense. The other two moments are the moments where you gain time back that I'm wondering about. What about Era? Did you see what happened with Louis' bomb jump?
Yeah, so Louis,
react to that?
He failed bomb jump.
Yeah, he followed the bomb jump, and you had just a slight lead after that.
Yeah.
When did you notice that, and what was your reaction to it?
Well, I was basically watching the stream as I was racing myself, and when I noticed that, I was like, well, I guess we both have dead runs now. And I don't know, I was thinking, okay, so I guess that makes the race more even until Aghanim, and that's kind of what happened. Like, we were basically even going up to Aghanim, and I think Louis only got like, what, 2 blue balls?
Yeah, Louis, you were about 1 blue ball ahead. We got 2 blue balls when you got 5, so it was about a 20-second gap after that.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too.
That more or less persisted 2 seconds up until Skull Woods. So what about Skull Woods? What was your reaction after you saw that you had regained the lead in Skull Woods? Like once you got the lead back, you were playing a bit more confidently.
I don't know. I guess I was like less pressured to gain time back, and I was just like trying to not make like punishing mistakes. But like I was also at the same time trying to push for gold splits, which it didn't quite work out, unfortunately. But
yeah, I was actually it looked like you might have been going for, because there were some places where you seemed to be going for safer strats, and there were some places where you seemed to be cutting a lot of corners. One thing that I was wondering about was how that you skipped in Turtle Rock would have come really in handy on Ice Armor's fight. It seemed to me that maybe you were going for the gold split in Turtle Rock at that
point. What did you say I skipped in Turtle Rock?
Did you skip the 5-arrow pot?
I don't think so, because I think I only had like 9 arrows going into Turtle Rock.
Maybe
so
that was probably my. Maybe you had 9 and you picked up the 5 and got to 14. So that was probably my.
Actually, Ice Armos, that was another thing. Like I noticed, it's like I fell into the hole for Ice Armos, and I noticed I only had 19 arrows, and I guess I sort of panicked, and I was like, man, I better not like screw this up, and then I screwed it up.
My bad memory. Sometimes focusing on something actually makes it more difficult. I find speedrunning. It's better to try to just react on it.
Yeah, like at some point, I just want to let basically your hands do the work, like let muscle memory carry on.
A lot of times. Well, certainly a very exciting race. How do you feel about just to have gotten through? And a 128 with everything that happened is not a bad time.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that I could have still gotten a 127 after Turtle Rock, considering like everything that happened in this run. I was like, well, if I can have like a decent Ganon's Tower and like I don't die on Ganon, which neither of those things happened, then like I would have been like pretty happy with a 127. I'm still okay with this, but yeah, like of course that's obviously not gonna cut it for next round.
Yeah, so next round, let's talk about that. You have an incredibly exciting match scheduled with TGH, who won a match that I commentated yesterday between your PB and his PB. is, I believe, almost exactly a minute.
Yeah, about a minute. I think he has like a mid 125.
Has a 125.33, and if I'm correct, you have a 126.35.
Yep, that's right.
So just very slightly over a minute gap. A minute is something that people often lose in races, so you're definitely going to have a chance in that race. What are you going to be taking away from this race to prepare for that one?
Probably do more practice and like
solid, good, yeah.
That's always a good strat, yeah. Do practice and like make sure I like cut the more costly mistakes out of the run, and like I don't know, make sure I can close runs out without like deaths and whatnot. Because yeah, if I can like consistently like bring my average, because like I know I can like get 127s and like unfinished runs. If I can bring that to like finishing 126s like more often, then like I would probably stand a chance versus TGH. But yeah, like 128 like more than likely is not gonna cut it, assuming like he plays like up par with his PB and whatnot.
Well, your work cut out for you, but I think it's a really exciting race, and I definitely think you'll have a shot. Hopefully everybody who is here to that one, I guess it'll be in a week or two, for the next round, but we all look forward to it, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for commentating.
Last thoughts?
Rolling out.
Sounds good.